Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Welcome to India Factoring Chat Show, Factoring one-stop solution for your global aspiration. I am Vaibhav Raj, your host for the chat show today. Before we welcome our esteemed speaker, allow me to provide an overview of India Factoring. India Factoring offers working capital solution through the factoring product aimed at converting your receivable into cash. The company is subsidiary of European bank FimBank and is registered under RBI as an NBFC factor. India Factoring is also 83 category authorized dealer. We started our operation in India in 2010 and through our global network, we offer one-stop solution around receivable finance. For the past 6 years, we have held the top position in export factoring in India. Additionally, we have garnered recognition through numerous national and international awards including accolades such as Best Receivable Finance, being ranked among the top 25 safest place to work, and receiving the prestigious FCI Best Deal of the Year award, and various others. Now let me introduce you with our speaker, Professor Krishna Kumar Datsena, hailing from vibrant city of Ranchi. With a rich background in supply chain management and risk mitigation, Professor Krishna is currently lending his expertise as a professor at IM Ranchi. Boasting over a decade of experience, he is seasoned professional renowned for his contribution to sustainable supply chain management, risk management in road freight transportation, and decision analysis. Widely respected for his analytical prowess, strategic acumen, and track record of delivering successful outcomes, Professor Krishna Kumar Datsena here promises to enlighten us with his valuable insight and wealth of knowledge. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Vaibhav, for this kind introduction. Thank you very much.
So, sir, before we start, would you like to add anything?
Let us start and thank you very much. I have seen the introduction also that company, right? The organization you are basically currently as a working as an intern, right? So I hope next 30 minutes will be very good for all of us, right? We are going to learn together. Thank you very much, Vaibhav.
So, sir, as your specialization, I would start with telling what are the key types of risk that supply chain faces today, and how have they evolved over time? So can you tell me more about this?
Yes, thank you, Abraham. So, first of all, nowadays we can see the risk, which is very, very important, right? And recently we have faced the one important risk, which is basically disruption in supply, right? Disruption in because of the environment, because of the society, because of the economy. There are different types of this, but generally as an organization, we can categorize those risks in two different ways, right? One is internal risk, another way we can define as the external risk, right? Internal means that we can easily identify and we can able to control it, but external like COVID-19, just now we have seen, right? That was not under the control of management, right? So sometimes we can divide this as an internal external, but mainly most of the supply chain, especially in the finance side, we can divide into disruption in the supply, right? Maybe sometimes because of this natural disaster that we have seen. Sometimes demand volatility, right? Because of uncertainty in demand, we are unable to predict the demand, right? That is also, and one of the most important thing that we are going to discuss more detailed in our further discussion is a cyber security risk, right? Because when we are talking about, especially in the supply chain finance, right? Supply chain finance, the data is very, very much important, right? And how critical that data, right, for the growth of organization as well as the individual or for the society, right? And securing that data is very, very much important, right? So cyber security threat is one of the biggest risks, as I can say nowadays, right? Considering other risks. And further, if you let me just take 1 minute to highlight the importance of this cyber security threat, right? Recently, I was going through one trade journal, right? The data I have seen that in America, right? We are considering America that they have faced the cybersecurity issues, and because of that, American lost more than 5.8 billion to fraud as compared to 2.4 billion it was in 2020, right? So it is gradually increasing. I think the cyber security, especially for the supply chain finance, is one of the biggest challenge that we are going to face in future, and how to handle that we are going to discuss, right? Further, there are as we are developing country, and we can see that the regulatory and compliance changes are also one kind of challenge or risk to consider. That is also very very important. And one more thing, as we have from the supplier reliability, how reliable our supplier is, right? Especially when we are talking, we are having if we are depending on only single supplier, right? So that will be more risky as compared to that. But if we are having the more supplier, then there may be challenge in different quality issues, right? Reliability, lead time, all those. So there are different issues in terms of supply, right? And I will take one last point because we are going to discuss. Nowadays, we have heard about the Sustainable Development Goals, sustainability, ESG, environment, right?
Yes.
So, what basically it means? Is it really applicable for our supply chain finance also or not, right? So, that we need to discuss, right? So, environmental and sustainable risk is going to become very, very important challenge for all of us. Right?
Rightly said, sir. Like you said about we have evolved, we have seen the disruption in COVID, and you have also mentioned about the ESG norms. So, sir, what are the different ESG norms? I mean, what are the different risk mitigations which we can think of as in small, medium enterprise or medium enterprise in terms of that? Can you highlight something on that?
Yes. If specifically I will talk about the COVID-19, there is a very popular term, ad hoc supply chain. Ad hoc supply chain, right? Ad hoc means basically we are ad hoc kind of strategy, mitigation strategy means we are going to formulate a specific strategy for a specific our challenge or risk for a specified time, right? Because COVID-19 maybe or maybe we can take some other examples, right? We know some specific challenge or issue or risk which is going to offer for a specified time limit. So for that, we may have this different kind of strategy, right? We can have, but yes, considering the long term and considering all the facts, whatever we are maybe we are facing in our industry, we may have the different kind of strategy, risk mitigation strategy. Right? First of all, to formulate our strategy or policy, as a organization point of view, first and most important step is that we need to find out the most important and critical risk that we have, right? Or maybe we may face in our future, right? So this is the most important point. So as I mentioned, we need to find out the most important risk factors, and based on the risk factor, we may try to map our strategy which may handle or minimize the impact. Please remember, when you are talking about the mitigation strategy, I cannot say that it will mitigate fully 100%, right? So sometimes it is not possible, right? Most of the time it is not. Sometimes most of the time this is not possible that our strategy is going to fully mitigate or maybe minimize the 100%, right? Our impact of our risk, right? So we may have. So based on the risk, we may try to find out the different policy or strategy, and we will try to map it based on the priority. But again, for that we need to find out the risk. So for here, there are some key strategies, right? As a supply chain finance or a supply chain manager, you may consider to mitigate or become a proactive for our future risk or challenges, right? So, like supplier relationship management, I don't know how we are considering how important this relationship between the supplier and organization, right? If we are not able to have the we are not able to build a strong relationship between the supplier, right? Supplier relationship in the sense of the trust, transparency. Nowadays, because of this competitive market, right? We may have the thousands of suppliers, right? But I cannot simply change, okay, Vaibhav, I supplying the products, raw material for me from the last 10 years. I know is a very reliable, the quality, everything. But suddenly someone is coming. So suddenly someone is coming and he's providing some discount, all those things. So I don't know the reliability point of view because I'm working with the web for last 10 years. How I can easily trust, right? So there are some, if I'm talking about the supplier relationship management as a strategy point of view, from the organization point of view, basically. So I need to build a strong relationship with the supplier, concerning the trust, transparency, continuous communication, right? So all those points is very, very important. And as we told, supply chain visibility, right? What it basically means nowadays we can say when we are ordering something, right? Or maybe when we are placing some order in supply chain finance also, how maybe can I see my order? Can I trace my order? So that as a customer also I like very much, right? I can see okay my product or my order in this particular state, so how much time it may take, right? So supply chain visibility can also be considered as a strategy or a policy for basically your organization or any organization, right? Another way of strategy selection that you may consider the technological advancement. Just now we were talking about the supply chain risk, right? Supply chain risk we are talking. So you can, or maybe as an organization, we may also consider some strategy which may help us to minimize this fraud, right? Loss unnecessary basically we can say the paperwork human, so that also can be considered. And there is as we have gone through our operations management, right? We know that demand forecasting is very, very much important, right?
Yes, sir.
Especially in all the areas, right? So basically knowing the demand, right? And we also know that demand forecasting will never give the accurate result, right? I can predict 100, so it will never be exact 100, right? For the forecast, forecasting cannot be always true, right? But again, we can try to minimize our forecast, right? So we can have the better data collection. We can use the better model to predict our demand, right? So these are the some strategy we as a organization we may have. And one more thing I would like to add here. Nowadays, we have heard about the resilience, right? How
Yes, sir.
resilient your supply chain is. What basically it means. If I'm talking, okay, my supply chain is resilient, right? Or maybe how and why, right? What are the factors we are considering to make our supply chain more resilient, right? So basically, we need to design our supply chain in such a way that it should able to respond the demand or the challenges or risk in a more flexible way, right? The supply chain should be agile, right?
Yes,
How
sir.
quickly we are responding to the challenges. So these are the certain points as a manager. If I'm going to formulate a strategy, right? These are the certain points I need to consider, right? So again, you may ask, sir, you are telling there is many strategy, but there will be always constraint in terms of budget, correct? I
Yes.
cannot implement all these strategies that we are going to formulate. But how I can allocate the budgets, that's totally depend on the organization based on their priority of the risk, impact, loss, and their maybe the mapping with the particular strategy that we can consider.
Rightly said, sir. Like I was listening to you, you were saying about the risk mitigation part that we don't need to eliminate the 100% risk. Some risks should be there so that we can get the excess return out of that risk. Apart from that, I was about to ask about the resilient supply chain, what you were mentioning about. Sir, as you said that we cannot go through the 100% all the options which we are having right now in our hands. So there comes a simulation planning, and apart from that, there are some other things like scenario planning and stress testing in this supply chain resilience. So can you focus more about that part? Like this can
Yes,
help
yes,
all the small medium enterprises which are currently viewing us or will be viewing us. So for them,
yes. So correct. So when we are talking about the resilience, right? So what are the basically points we need to consider nowadays? And nowadays, become resilience is very, very much important. But the same time, we need to also focus on the sustainable environment, right? If to make my company more resilient, I cannot basically violate the rules regulation for sustainable development, right? Or maybe I cannot simply ignore the sustainable basically point whenever I am formulating or whenever I am trying to make my company more resilient, right? So especially when we are talking about this in our, let me just discuss more in terms of sustainable supply chain finance, right? How we are integrating this environment, social, as well as our what we can say the governance ESG, right? How we are able to integrate the concept of ESG, integrate the environment, social, and supply chain finance management. Both are basically very much important. And the main objective of this sustainable supply chain finance, right? Basically to incentivize the sustainable behavior in global supply chain. If I will not get any benefit, right? Even though if government is going to impose that kind of rules and regulation, but still, we the main of the sustainable supply chain finance aims to incentivize the sustainable behavior in global supply chain, right? By basically to create the environmental, social, and economic benefit for all the stakeholders, which is basically involved in that particular process or operation, right? So I think considering all the different perspectives from the multi-stakeholders, right, we need to know what are the basically viewpoint from them and how we can incorporate, right, without hampering our goal, right, sustainable goal. So that will be basically helpful for all the organizations.
Definitely, sir. Can you add some any example related to this with regards to stress and sustainable planning? Like this will
Yes,
add,
no,
yes,
yes,
go on, sir.
well, please.
Like this will add more weight to the explanation what you just said.
Yes. So nowadays, when we are talking about the sustainable planning, so let me just take the example uh, for our infrastructural development, right? Or when we are talking about the sustainable road freight transportation, right? What basically it means, right? If I'm talking about the sustainable road freight transportation, then I need to minimize the carbon emission, right? Similarly, in supply chain, other supply chain, basically manufacturing industry or for other SMEs, right? Our main objective when I'm talking about the sustainable supply chain, so main objective is to minimize the impact in to the negative impact to the environment, society, as well as the economy, right? So, for example, if I'm going, I'm talking about this sustainable road freight transportation, right? What it means basically, I will try to minimize the carbon emission. I will try to use the vehicles which is basically produce emitting the lesser carbons, right? Or maybe I will try to take the route where I can maybe the road infrastructure in the sense if the road is good, definitely the carbon emission, speed, everything will be good, right? So there are so many other factors which is directly or indirectly linked with the sustainable operations. Yes, for
Definitely.
any kind of organization, not only for the road freight transportation, but for other areas also.
Yes, sir. Can you focus on like more on the topic, like what are the emerging trends and technologies that are likely to shape the future of this supply chain finance?
Yes. So basically, when we are talking about this supply chain finance, right, and which is really and nowadays, when we can see the terms like blockchain, IoT, artificial intelligence, right, cloud computing. So these are some important terminology which is basically very famous nowadays. So in same line, let me just discuss some important technological influence on sustainable supply chain finance, right? So there are some points. Let me just discuss. One significant technology influence in supply chain finance is the blockchain technology. When I'm talking about the blockchain, what basically it means, right? Blockchain technology, we were talking about the transparency, trust, accountability, all those things. So now, when we are going to use this technology like blockchain technology, right? This technology will help us to detect or to prevent the fraud, corruption, right? And which is very, very much essential for ethical trade practice, right? I cannot say, sir, if there is some mismatch, there is some fraud, or maybe the information is not correct, or some corruption in between. So that will also lead to the unethical practice, right? So to mitigate, to maybe to what overcome such kind of practices, we need to go for the technological advancements like blockchain technology, which will basically help the organization or companies to track their supply chain, right? From start to finish, it is not like that, right? So this is just one example. I can see there are some more examples, right? There are some more examples like your cloud computing, right? When you are talking about the cloud computing, how the implementation or adoption of this cloud computing in our sustainable supply chain finance, how it will help us, right? So basically, the all the companies, right, and especially when we are talking about the supply chain finance, right, as a company, we have use data set, use any critical data. I'm not saying only the big data set, but that data is very, very critical, right? So storing the data allows maybe the cloud computing, what it will do, it will allows companies to store and access the data from anywhere in the world, right? Making it easier to manage the supply chain, right? So these are some technological advancement, right? As we can do, right, to make our supply chain finance more effective. Similarly, if we are talking about the maybe transparency, right? How we can have the clear communication with our what we can say the collaborator or different stakeholders. So there are artificial intelligence, right? IoT, right? So there are several technological advancements definitely which will help organizations to make their operations more sustainable, more transparent, more resilient also.
Definitely, sir. Like you said about the blockchain, the services, I mean, the distributed ledger technology and the tokenization concept is remarkable in terms of blockchain, and it provides a great transparency, as you mentioned. Sir, as we move
Now,
on, yes,
sorry to stop me. I would like to add one more important. Recently, we had a discussion with one of the solution provider, which is basically providing solution to the transportation industry. And one very interesting thing he was discussing that nowadays, I'm just telling about this IoT and blockchain, the camera they are using to make the safety, right? The camera they are using in trucks to just check whether they are driving and when they are stopping, other things. But the, the camera can be used in different way. There are some police officer, or maybe there are some crimes also which can be captured, and maybe we can get the exact what happened, right? What exact happened. So that also help us help not only to the operations of transportation, that also help in social aspects also, right? How the different information can be gathered and which can be used for further maybe justice or all those things. So that was the very interesting thing he was telling. He was basically installed the camera for operation, transportation operation, but that camera, the data, which can also be used for legal purpose or police officers, they also can use.
yes, sir. Sir, as we move on, I would like to ask one more thing, like, what challenges do the organization face in adopting and implementing the data analytics solution in their supply chain?
Yes. So basically, this is really when we had a uh, discussion with so many what we can say uh, uh, entrepreneurs or the maybe we can say the SMEs managers, right? Especially when we are talking about the implementation, right? So infrastructural point of view is very very much important. Like infrastructure point means as I don't know, we are not really ready for this implementation we need to change our infrastructure, we need to change the different, maybe the skilled human labor, skilled infrastructure. So these are the some major challenges I have basically observed. I don't know because many companies, sir, kya hoga is right? What we can do? Because we need to change all things again, and I don't know whether what will be the positive impact or not, right? So these are the basically the I can say the mindset which basically restrict in implementation. Again, I don't know the economic uh, uh, cost, right, of implementing such technologies will be again important issue, right? Because they are having the restricted budget, right? So whether to implement, considering the infrastructure, the skill required, right? So there are some challenges as organizations.
Sir, as we go on in the discussion, we have a question from Manav Goel.
Hmm.
He's asking, like, but what if the cost is too high for sustainable development and the company don't have budget to adopt and government rules are not mandatory as of now? So what should we do?
Correct. Correct. Yes, Manoj, thank you very much. So this is exactly the same point I was trying to discuss because nowadays, if like people are forcing, sir, you have to do this particular policy, or you have to implement it, but the cost is very very high, right? So in such cases, as an organization, we have to take the decision. We have to decide whether is it really mandatory, and also is it really required, and if we have the sufficient budget or not, right? If we don't, right, so according to that, maybe we may have some different planning or some different steps that can be implemented. One more question I can see: how can organizations manage?
Yes, sir. This question is from Rishi. How can organization balance the use of technology with the need for human expertise and intuitions in supply chain decision making?
Okay, okay. So here I can say when you are talking about the automation, right? When you are talking about the automation, or when we are talking about this digitization, right? So we need to balance, right? We cannot simply rely everything from our what we can say the technological perspective, right? We need also the human expert that can basically analyze the data, the information, because see, the technology will give the data. As a human brain, we need to analyze that what basically we can interpret, right? So having have totally big data, right? We have the data, but we are not able to extract the information. Her data kuch karta hai, right? Her data kuch karta. So if we are not able to extract the information from the data, that we cannot make the better decision. So basically, in such cases, technology may provide you the information data, but how that information, as an expert, as a human, right, as manager, we are going to use for our organization, that is really important to make the better decision, right, to make our decision better, how we are implementing such information, or maybe extracting the information from the data is really important.
Definitely, sir. Rightly said, as you said, that if we have garbage data, then obviously the result would be garbage only. And if we are
Correct.
removing the human element from there also, then it is going to create more problem for us in future. Sir, I would like to ask one more thing. Like, how can companies prepare themselves to adapt with the evolving trends and dynamics in the supply chain finance or in the supply chain management?
Uh, yes, so basically, if as a now we need in supply chain finance, especially in terms of finance, if you are talking, right, there is requirement to build a trust and transparency, right, among the partners, among the collaborators, among the stakeholders, right? For that, we need to have the clear communication, right? Basically, mutual understanding of the situations or events, right? There is basically the security of your data, transparency of the data, right? There should also be the cultural agreements, right, between the your stakeholders or collaborators, right? So there are different ways that as an organization, as a supply chain finance organization, we need to right? Like continuous monitoring and feedback is also really important, right? Trust building activities we can do. So these are some points as an organization we need to consider.
So we have one more question from Jessica. How can collaboration among supply chain partners help in identifying and mitigating risk more effectively?
Yes, basically the collaboration among the supply chain, like let us assume we have our supplier, right? We have our distributor, or maybe we have our another entity in our supply chain. So if we are not able to get the information, exact information from our partners, right, our collaborators, right, which basically is really, really important for maybe making a policy or a strategy. If I'm not able to identify exactly the problem, how I can maybe make the solution, how I can basically propose a solution, right? So basically the collaboration among the supply chain partners, maybe to handle the uncertain situations, right, is very, very much important. And collaboration basically means simply, okay, like nowadays you can see there are the different companies that are collaborating for the information, for the basic capacity also, right? For other aspects also, right? So we can collaborate for maybe to enhance the resilience of our supply chain also, right? Sometimes as a single, I cannot handle this much demand, right? So how I can collaborate, right? There are some different experts, right, which can contribute in our panel or organization in different way. That also important, right? So collaborating will definitely help the as a whole organization, not only the single organization, for both the organization, collaborating partners, right?
Rightly said, sir. As we are approaching towards the end of the session, anything else you would like to add on as we haven't discussed? I mean, we haven't discussed that part as of now.
Uh, So first of all, the discussion maybe really interesting for me. I don't know about you guys, right? But nowadays, as our Mano Goel was asking one more question, right? There are some economic scenario, right, which is basically manufacturing industry in India during the economic downturn. So nowadays there are some policies I can see from the government perspective, right? There are some government supports program which is basically I can see the initiatives, right? Indian government has introduced some scheme and policies such as Mudra loan, right? Prime Minister Employment Generation program. So there are some kind of program definitely government should initiate, right? Then only it will helpful for all the basically the SMEs, right? So that is the basically points I would like to mention, because without support, right, in especially when you are talking about sustainability, but it's difficult, right? It's basically economically it is very high, right? Maybe very costly. So then there need to be some support from the government also. Yes.
Rightly said, sir. With the discussion, I got a point. Like you mentioned about the blockchain technology and all, and we are also talking about the small medium enterprises which are going into these services. So how easily they can afford these services? Like as of now, it's not well developed. So
Correct,
for
correct,
the
correct.
transition period, what would be the emerging technologies for them?
Yes. When I'm talking about the blockchain or cloud computing, right?
Yes.
Cloud computing, artificial intelligence, or IoTs, right? So basically, that is the reason I was telling that government support program, right, to maybe subsidized loan or credit guarantees, right, or interest rate concessions, right? So this kind of initiatives, which are basically the government should take, or government support program is required to implement such technology. Even though we don't know in initial the cost of implementation of such technologies are very, very high. So that is the reason most of the industry when they are thinking, so the cost is very, very high. I have to change this, that, and again, I don't know the outcome also, right? So that is basically the dilemma most of SMEs as an organization may face, right? for such kind of issues, maybe yes, government support, maybe the subsidized loan, those things can help to encourage the SMEs or organizations to maybe implement such technological advancement in their operations.
Okay, sir, with this, I would like to thank you for joining us, for sharing such a valuable experience with us, and hope to see you in future for future collaborations also. Thanks a lot, sir.
Yes, Vaibhav, thank you very much. Thank you, the team, right? India, right? Hack to India. So, for inviting me, it was really interesting. And thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. So you can
Thank
leave
you.
now.